Somewhere in Rome, two men are standing outside a locked gate, shouting numbers at each other. They're not bidding on land, not gold, not a title. They're bidding on an entire empire. Whoever shouts the highest number wins the single most powerful job on the planet. No election, no bloodline, no army required. Just money and the nerve to keep raising the offer. So who's selling it? Why would anyone even be allowed to do this? And what kind of empire lets its own throne get treated like an item on a table? This all started in March of 193 AD, just over a decade after the death of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor you've probably seen played on screen in movies like Gladiator. Rome was still riding on the reputation of one of its most respected rulers, and in less than 3 months, that same empire would watch its throne get sold to the highest bidder, in public, by the men who were supposed to protect it. Here's how it actually happened. Just 3 months earlier, a guy named Pertinax had taken over as emperor. Right after the last one, Commodus got assassinated. Commodus, if you don't know him, was the emperor played by Joaquin Phoenix in Gladiator, the unstable, violent one. By the time he was gone, Rome was honestly relieved. People wanted stability again. Pertinax tried to give them that. He went after the Praetorian Guard, basically the emperor's own personal bodyguards, and cut back on their perks, cracked down on their corruption. He wanted discipline restored. They did not take that well. On March 28th, they killed him. He'd been emperor for 87 days. So now Rome's got no emperor, and the guys who just murdered the last one are standing there, deciding what happens next. Not the Senate, not the people, the Guard. And here's where it gets almost unbelievable. According to Cassius Dio, a Roman historian who was actually alive and watching all this happen, the Praetorian Guard did something nobody expected. They basically announced, out loud, in public, that the throne was for sale. Whoever paid them the most money got to be emperor. 2 guys showed up. One was Sulpicianus, the old emperor's own father-in-law. He was already inside the camp, making offers. The other was a wealthy senator named Julianus, around 60 years old, decent political career behind him. Problem was, when he showed up, they wouldn't even let him through the gate. So he just stood outside and started yelling his own bids over the wall. Picture that for a second. A 60-year-old senator, standing in the street, shouting numbers at soldiers through a fence, trying to buy an empire. This went on for hours. Sulpicianus offers 20,000 coins per soldier. Julianus comes back with 25,000, which, for context, was something like 10 years of pay for a regular soldier. For every single guy in the guard. That's not a bid, that's a small fortune, multiplied by thousands of soldiers. Julianus won. And Cassius Dio, watching this whole thing happen live, basically couldn't believe what he was seeing. He wrote that it looked exactly like a market or an auction house, the entire city, the entire empire, being sold off like merchandise by the very same people who'd just killed the last emperor. This is a guy who lived through it, writing it down in real time, and even he couldn't hide how disgusted he was. The Senate was terrified of the armed guard standing right there, so they went along with it. Julianus was officially emperor now. On paper, legally, he ran the most powerful empire on the planet. But the actual people of Rome? Not fooled for a second. When he rode through the streets, nobody cheered. People shouted curses at him. Everyone knew exactly what had just happened, and exactly what it meant about how power actually worked now. And here's the part that's almost funny in a dark way. Julianus had promised the guard all this money. Then he actually checked the treasury. There wasn't enough. The emperor of Rome, a genuinely wealthy man by any normal standard, couldn't actually afford the price he'd bid to become emperor in the first place. He'd basically won an auction he couldn't pay off. Meanwhile, word of this spreads across the empire. And 3 different military commanders, in 3 completely different regions, all have the exact same thought at the exact same time. If the throne can just be bought by whoever's got the most cash, why don't I just take it with my army instead? If legitimacy is that flimsy, why not skip the auction and go straight to force? One of them, a guy named Septimius Severus, who's commanding legions way up near the Danube, starts marching toward Rome. And as he gets closer, the same Praetorian Guard that literally just sold the empire weeks earlier, they abandon Julianus completely. No loyalty left at all. The Senate sees which way this is going, and sentences their own emperor to death just to get ahead of it. June 2nd, 193 AD. A soldier finds Julianus alone in the palace and kills him. His last words, according to Dio, were something like, "But what evil have I done? Who have I even killed?" He'd been emperor for exactly 66 days. Severus walks into Rome basically unopposed and becomes the next emperor. One of the first things he does? Disbands the entire Praetorian Guard and executes the guys who killed Pertinax in the first place. He wanted everyone to know that particular chapter was over. Here's the part worth actually thinking about, though. This wasn't just some embarrassing one-off. A lot of historians point to this exact moment as one of the clearest early signs that something was seriously broken in how Rome picked its rulers. Because if the most powerful job on earth could just be bought by whoever yells the highest number, then the whole idea that power was legitimate was already kind of hollow. It just took the right crisis to expose that. This year even got its own nickname afterward. Historians call it the Year of the Five Emperors, because Julianus wasn't even the last one to fall. 5 different men claimed that throne within 12 months. Rome basically spent an entire year figuring out, violently, who actually got to be in charge. Rome didn't fall apart that day, but something cracked that never really got fixed. An empire that built itself on discipline and law had just watched its own bodyguards auction off the throne like it was livestock. You'll probably hear the phrase, "for sale," today, somewhere completely ordinary. Rome's throne was too, once, and everyone who lived through it knew exactly how scared that should have made them. If you want more of history's quiet cracks, the ones that don't look like a collapse until you look back at, there's more of this waiting on the channel.